Okay. Good morning, dear colleagues. My name is Darja. I'm from the University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Arts, Slovenia. I would start with many thanks to Professor Razvan and to other people who made this conference possible. I do plan to be next time with you personally, but today in this way because we couldn't solve in another way. My today's presentation is about images of different persons in recent FL textbooks from plurilingualism, from point of view, pluriculturalism point of view, but from a special aspect. Images. Images mean photos and illustrations. Recent FL textbooks mean from last 5 years, in some cases from last 10 years, for English, for German and for Italian as foreign languages. Different persons. With this I mean people and persons depicted in textbooks which are not white-skinned, which are officially Caucasian origin. Instead of long introduction, just a few words. English is dominant. Official policy in European Union is that languages other than English are important, should be appreciated, and so on. Textbooks for foreign languages are supposed to reflect dynamics in today's European societies. This means also in German, in Italian, and in Great Britain. As a foreign language teaching methodologist, I have some doubts because I follow these textbooks for Italian since 25 years at least, and I do have my doubts about that. And this was leading me to studying literature, but I'm not going to present this will be in the article. I'm going to present the research gap. I realized that there are no really many research done in the field of how different races are depicted in textbooks for foreign languages, except for English, because there is a long colonial history, development, dynamics, and so on. And their findings, their research results have had influence on how the textbooks are organized. But this is probably not the case for other languages and other textbooks. Why? The key word here is tolerance or intolerance. It's needless to explain anything about last 2 days, weeks, months, years and decades in Europe. And I do believe that textbooks for foreign languages can add or remove some little stones about these issues. How? I use critical discourse analysis, but also quantitative procedures of analysis. So my aim was to reveal how often and how the images of non-Caucasians are integrated in textbooks for the textbooks for foreign languages I mentioned. And my research questions are pertaining to how frequent the non-Caucasian persons are in textbooks, so quantitative, and also some qualitative analysis, so more or less visible principles of choice by authors and publishing houses. And of course, I'm trying to answer the question if there are some biases in regarding foreigners' depiction in textbooks for foreign languages. So, textbooks for foreign languages are, as we all know, and are the first exposures of learners to the target culture and language. They are supposed to reflect social and historical practices. They are, I like these findings by Weniger and Kies. Learners are highly likely to treat textbooks as sources, as carriers of truth. An example, if learners in Serbia, for example, learn Italian as a foreign language in their secondary school, they use textbooks produced in Italy. And if they see only white-skinned Caucasian people in these textbooks, they would expect that when they go to Italy that they will meet only such people. But this is absolutely not true in case of Italy. As I mentioned, my corpus were 12 textbooks. 4 for Italian, 4 for German, 4 for English, 2 textbooks for younger teenagers between 12 and 14 years of age, and 2 textbooks for older teenagers and adults, German, Italian at elementary level, English for intermediate level. Why? These levels, because they are correlated to the period of adolescence of learners, when the brain of learners becomes definitely mature for certain cognitive processes, as you know, and rational development of awareness regarding various aspects. As I mentioned, I'm going to present quantitative and some qualitative results. Here are some results for Italian as for Italian textbooks as foreign language. As you can see, non-Caucasians are represented between 0 and 17% of all pages of textbooks. On the other hand, Caucasian-looking persons are on 1/3 up to 80% of pages. If we have a look at single textbook series, we notice that only one series is represented with 17%. All the other have much lower share or percentage. Let's have a look at some examples. In Nuovo Espresso, this is the only photo with persons who are not Caucasian, non-Caucasian origin, and even in this photo they are presented as on the margin. The 2 people who are not Caucasian origin are on the margin of the photo, not in the center. Also, Nuovo Contatto for older teenagers, 8 depictions altogether on 300 pages as before, and also in this case we don't see persons which are not non-Caucasian origin presented as integrated in Italian society. We have a student from Mexico, she might become integrated into Italian society. All the others are tourists to Italy, so temporary, a girl from Japan, but who is living in Japan. Mandela and Obama presented more as objects than as subjects in this textbook. And the only case is this girl from Morocco, so African origin, probably, but we don't know if she lives in Morocco or in Italy, if she's integrated or not, because the dynamic of this this image doesn't show us this. Espresso Ragazzi is the textbook series with the highest percentage. In here I would like to comment about some depictions. In the first one they are equal. Also the photo seems to represent Caucasian and non-Caucasian young people in an equilibrated way. Also this illustration seems to represent an equally integrated member into Italian society. But if we read texts, dialogues, or listen to dialogues, we realize that the Italian boy or young man, he is important, all the information circle around him, and the girl from Morocco is only a sort of admirer of him. He never asks her about her university studies, about her spare time and family and so on. Also, this picture seems to show good integration, but if we have a closer look, we notice that all other races, except the boy with African origins, have these bubbles and they communicate with teacher. He is the only one without. I like slightly this case because here the pictures of these beautiful young people remind learners that their best friends can also be persons which are not Caucasian origin. The last one, Italian. These 2 photos are only decoration on pages. The text around them has nothing to do with these children or younger adolescents. There are pages about grammar exercises. And this one is the only photo in this series where a non-Caucasian girl is integrated in a dynamic way with Caucasian friends. German textbooks. Here the range is between 2 and 17. Again, low shares for 3 textbooks and high shares, 17%, for only 1. Let's have a look at examples. In the first case, Beste Freunde, there are 4 photos on almost 300 pages. In this case, all these non-Caucasian persons are not represented as integrated into the German society, except perhaps this one, when both Caucasian-looking and not Caucasian-looking person is discussing about something to drink with someone. The second textbook for younger teenagers, this is the only photo on 300 pages, and I believe and I'm convinced this is okay. All other illustrations are with this protagonist, and mainly in this way, so the non-Caucasian person is represented with back and shoulders. In only one case, in this case, we see him in front of us, with the face towards us. Also for all the teenagers and young adults, I would like to comment only on this illustration here, where we can see, perhaps it was supposed to be funny or full of humor, but I find this illustration in fact sad, perhaps even a little bit racistic, but this is my intuition. In any case, I don't find it flattering at all about racist, non-Caucasian persons living in Germany, because a Turk is selling something to eat to an African and Asian origin person, and they are represented as sort of ghetto and not even embedded into German society. The last one, Studio, with the highest percentage. I like these textbooks from the professional point of view, of course. Here we see young people from Caucasian and non-Caucasian origin collaborating at work, at school. They are schoolmates in school classes, in schools, in German schools, so integrated. Schools collaborate with schools in Japan and so on. What is interesting about this textbook is that in Germany there are very many Islamic immigrants, but the only photo on 300 pages is this lady. English textbooks. Here we see that the range with non-Caucasian persons is between 4 and 20%. But if we look at the others, we see that 4% is only the case of on-screen textbook series. And this is high level, even B2. And here the focus is on texts, not on visual aids. So in fact also this 4% is not that low. If we look at examples, we can probably, and you can probably notice immediately how different they are from previous examples. Here the young people from non-Caucasian origin are represented mainly as active individuals, but very often as members of social groups, equal members of social groups. So a group of Caucasian and not Caucasian musicians, friends collaborating in a school project, learners of the same classroom in Great Britain, collaborating with a problem-solving activity or something at school. It's not important which origin you are when you talk about what you have in your school bag, and so on and so on. Often, not sometimes, but often, non-Caucasian persons are represented as outsiders to the British society, but with respect. So special lifestyle, such as Sherpas, or source of wisdom for European Western societies. And what I like as well, mixed families, different races having fun together, and English public school with a non-Caucasian teacher and Caucasian learners. If I compare my results with statistical data about the share of immigrants in these three countries, so Italy, Germany, Great Britain, we can notice that in fact the official rate of immigrants is 0.5% in Italy, 1.25% in Germany, and roughly 1% in Great Britain. And the frequency of depictions of non-Caucasian persons is much higher, and this is positive. If I sum up my findings, so the range of non-Caucasians on pages is between 0 and 20%. 0 is absolutely not a positive result, I believe. The majority is between 0 and 5%, in fact, and I don't think this is enough to sensibilize learners about the presence of non-Caucasian people in societies, in Italian, German, and British societies. I believe that, as you have seen from examples, perhaps the percentage between 5 and 15 would be much better to make learners sensible to this aspect of the dynamics in the society. The principles of choice, so this hidden ideology, is of two types. So non-Caucasians are represented as decoration, as politically correct decoration too, sometimes as exotic, attractive objects, but however not equal members of social groups. In case of English textbooks and one German textbooks, they are represented mainly as equal members in social groups depicted in textbooks. So some textbooks for sure are biased in terms of foreigners representation, in some cases even too clearly. In some textbooks this bias is strongly, in some weaker evident. However, there are prominent differences between Italian and German textbooks versus English textbooks. And I think it's needless to talk about implications, but I think that development will bring other visual aids also to German and Italian textbooks. However, even much more research is needed, and with this I would end, and thank you very much for your attention. And I do plan to be with you in 2 years' time. Bye-bye.